Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and welcome those on Zoom also, and special welcome for those who are here for the first time. We have a very special guest this evening. Ken O'Donnell is one of the institution's oldest teachers, dear brothers, who travels extensively to share his experiences, what he has studied, what he has learned with the Brahma Kumaris. But at present, he is based in Sao Paulo in Brazil, but he still travels and he has come to be with us for a couple of days. So this evening, he will give a talk on moving from ego to inner dignity, which we are all waiting to hear how to do that. And I'm sure you all will enjoy. And for those who are for the first time afterwards, we will share a bit more information. Okay. Thank you for being with us, Brother Ken.
Brother Ken, we can't hear you on Zoom.
Hello.
Okay, it's coming in now.
Okay, good. I think the best thing to do is to start with some everyone together silence, because it sort of puts us all on the same page. Yeah. So first step, sit nicely. In our type, the meditation we learned here, you don't really even need to close your eyes. So just let your gaze rest on something in front of you. Just become aware of a few facts. Physically, you are not anywhere else, nor in any other moment. You're in this one now. Neither feeling the weight of the past nor anxious about the future. And as I just pay attention to this, I notice there are two worlds. One, an external world of colors and shapes and forms and noises, sounds, distances, and an inner world of my thinking and feeling. All of the things that are recorded in me. All of the possibilities that may take shape later on. So I just become aware of that. And as I slow down my thinking, in other words, I stop rushing around mentally, I start to get a sense of a deeper state. And as deep as I go, I start to feel quite peaceful, stable, calm. I give myself a chance to experience my deep qualities, not just peace, but also love, contentment. These things start to appear as I go deeper. Just as I can slow down my speech, I can also slow down my thinking. I get to enjoy my own qualities. That I'm often too busy or too noisy to be aware of. So the two worlds, one outside that you can sort of hear in the distance, and one inside which is becoming more and more calm and stable. Another thing that I become aware of, I'm in the center of 360 degrees of physical things around me here. And also, I'm in the center of my life. People and objects are connected with me. Like a sort of constellation. And as I become calm and stable, I actually start to have a positive impact on my world. Even at a distance. So I'm this tiny point of conscious energy, like a tiny little star. Try to see yourself like that. Sort of sitting in the middle of the forehead, a couple of inches back at the control panel of your life. Very calm, very peaceful, very stable, very easy basically content and loving. Just keep that feeling for a few moments. Gradually open your eyes a bit more and come back into the surroundings here, or those online, wherever you are. And okay. Feeling good? This topic is quite intriguing in a way, because it does imply two states. One in which we're very familiar with, where the ego is operating, and the other state which maybe not so familiar with, which is much deeper. And first of all, we have to understand this idea of ego. The word itself is actually a Greek word. And in Greek, it means I, literally. If you say in Greek, I'm going to the bank, it's ego going to the bank. So I don't know how it is for the Greeks to conquer ego. But I know that Freud sort of popularized the idea. And he suggested that what we call ego, in fact, is just the interface between a deeper state and the world that's going on around us. That's a good thing, to have someone to represent you, something to represent you in the world. Problem is that it often misrepresents us, sort of takes charge. And that's why it's associated with arrogance. Now, just think about it. So there are three states. There's the external world and all of the things that are happening. There's the ego, which is trying to represent our desires and emotions and feelings and in that world. And there's a deeper state that sometimes gets sort of lost. And when we say moving from ego to a state of inner dignity, I mean, it means that I'm changing my inner location in a way. Instead of directing things from this very superficial state. I'm so and so, I'm this, I did that. There's a song in Brazil, very famous. It sort of says, I was born like this. I grew up like this. I'm always going to be this. And my name is Gabriella. That's how the song goes. Very famous song. And it became sort of known. It's a sort of, if you say in Portuguese, the Gabriella syndrome, it means someone who's so caught up in their own story that they can't think outside of it. So the ego has three aspects. One of them is the physical identity, what sort of body you have, the age of the body, the beauty of the body, or the color of the body, even the religion of the body, because most people adopt the religion of the place where they're born. It's very, if you were born in Afghanistan, it's pretty impossible to be a Christian these days. So mostly people grow up in the culture into which they are born. Not always, but mostly. And so we take things on, When we are little babies, we are completely, just try to go back to your first infancy. Because it's recorded in you. You sort of come out of your mother's womb and you're not, especially if we understand that we've come from somewhere else, right? So you're looking at this sort of new world and you don't know what's going on. Sort of appear there. You may have had a hard time in the womb even, according to whatever your mother was doing. But with time, what happens, you start to get, when you start off, you don't know where your hand finishes and where the crib starts. You don't know where your finger finishes and the finger of your mother starts. You're not sure of those boundaries, everything is just one thing, right? In fact, I don't know how they did it. They did a study in England that the only human beings that are 100% present are young babies. And then when we're 4 years old, we are 80% present. When we're 8, 60% present. When we're 14, 40% present. When we're 18, 20% of the time we are present. And when we're adults, 3% of the time we are actually present. Means, what does that mean? That I am in this moment. I'm not running away from something that has happened or running towards something that will happen. You're walking from somewhere to go somewhere else. You're probably not conscious of the steps you're taking. You're thinking about what you're going to buy, what you're going to see, who you're going to meet, what you're going to say, and all of that. Maybe you're preoccupied about something that just happened as well, or happened last week. But very little of the time we're actually here and now. So I don't know how to work that out, but it makes sense that when we're young babies, we don't have a sense of separation from the things around us. And the reason for that, and the reason for those differences that I mentioned, is because the ego starts to build up with time and starts to separate itself out with time, And it's, the parents themselves actually have some responsibility in that they, this individual who thinks that everything is just one thing, which is the thinking consciousness in the baby. And there's mum and dad trying to coax the child to say mummy and daddy, and they become so happy, right? When little Joey or little Johnny says mum or dad, you are John, your name is John or Johnny or Tommy or whatever. And when he can remember his own name, they become so happy. And then you look at a few years later on, we travel around. How many times you filled out a form in your life? Huh? Countless. Countless. How many times have you repeated your name, address, date of birth, occupation, and so on? It's countless numbers of time. To the extent that you'd be very surprised to discover that actually the identity, the deep identity, is not that. It's not the name or the form or the place. Those characteristics are associated exactly with the ego. The I, instead of being a spiritual being going through this human existence, as some great people have said. There's a French Jesuit theologian called Teilhard de Chardin. He used to say that we are human beings going through, we are spiritual beings going through a human existence and not human beings looking for a spiritual one. So it's like the reverse. My real identity is not Johnny or Tommy or Anne or Mary, you know. That's not my real identity. That's the name of the body in which I'm using. But you know, very people would question the fact that if you see a photo of yourself, oh, that's me. But if you see a photo of yourself 5 years later, it's different, right? Most of us get a shock when we look at a photo 20 years ago, right? My God, I had hair. My teeth were okay. So whatever, you know. But the body goes on changing, but the essential energy is the same one. It's always been the same one. That essential energy has not changed. The life force is still the same one. So when you talk about going from ego to a sort of a sense of inner dignity, which is it's actually learning how to really respect yourself. And that means to learn about your spiritual identity. And you can make a list. These are all my physical characteristics, which is okay because they are the coordinates that I have. You don't have to reinvent them every day. These are the things that you've learned in this life. These are the roles that you play. This is the actual address of the body. All of those things are important, but they are not me. So when you say, I am a spiritual being and I have a body, that's much more correct than saying, I am a body and I have a soul somewhere. That really doesn't have any meaning. So what happens with this sort of our representative in the world, the agent, you could say, the agent that represents our consciousness in the world is the ego. And it sort of takes over in a way. I know what I'm doing. It's like there's an inner voice saying that has a sense of truth and a sense of meaning, but it tries to speak up and the ego says, shut up. I know what I'm doing. Just listen to me. I'll look after you. And this is interesting in one way because it can get us into all sorts of nonsense. You look at the difficulties you've had with other human beings in the ones that you can remember. Definitely it happened because ego had taken charge. You thought something more than what it was. Ego has an incredible ability to change our perception of things. And I was just remembering that I've worked a lot of my life as a consultant. And I remember once a woman from a big company, a Finnish company. In fact, it's the biggest company in its field. It makes not a particularly familiar household product. It makes ships' engines. It's the biggest manufacturer of ships' engines and big generators for the oil rigs. So it's a huge concern, but it's not exactly a household name, this company. It's called, what was the name? I can't remember. That's why it's not a whole household name. But the HR woman called me and said, can you develop a course on self-deception and leadership? I mean, just out of the blue. Imagine getting a call. Can you, by any chance, do you have in your abilities, or the workshops and trainings that you offer anything on leadership and self-deception? I said, no, never heard of it actually. Never heard of something. I knew what the words meant, but, and she told me that, I asked her, what are you talking about? She said, well, in our company, we have the waiting list for people buying our products is about 8 years. So we can handle any economic cycle. So you got a waiting list for 8 years, you get through any sort of storm, economic storm. But at the same time, we are, there are such incredible sort of problem amongst us at the top level. Can you not help the main team here? And they had their biggest manufacturing plant in the world in Brazil, funnily enough. And in Manaus, actually, sort of a port on the Amazon River. It's an ocean-going port, and it's a free port, so they must have got some tax dodges there to install their plant. And what she sent me, very interesting. She said, "I'll send you a video about what I mean." And she sent a video about this. I never had heard of this story, but she sent a video of a guy called Ignaz Semmelweis. Again, you've never heard of that particular individual, but he was actually the father of hygiene. Like, he was the one that invented washing hands in hospitals. And this was before Louis Pasteur, who discovered there were things called microbes and bacteria. And this was before that. And what happened was, in the hospital where he was working, it was a maternity hospital in Vienna. And what happened in the ward where the doctors worked, the mortality rate of women who were dying, giving birth, was completely out of proportion. Whereas the midwives, the women who delivered babies in the same hospital, the mortality rate was really low. And they were wondering what was going on. What was going on was these doctors, without knowing anything about hygiene and of hands and cleaning hands and stuff, they were performing autopsies and then going straight to delivering babies. Yeah. Can you imagine? You're a doctor, so you can imagine. So this, and of course, you probably got a bit of Hollywood in this because it was a film, right? And they show a scene where he goes home, and the wife, knowing that he has spent the whole afternoon performing autopsies, he goes to embrace her after work, and she was like this, "Oh, don't touch me with those hands," And so
Everyone, they're having some technical difficulties from the center. So I believe they're restarting Zoom. So please stand by. Apologies. It looks like they're coming back online. Thank you for your patience. We'll join them shortly.
I guess somehow never happened, but
We lost it. Hello, everyone. Back again. Okay. So each one of them had to look at, they had to look at the list. I have these 4 characteristics naturally, and these other 4 I need to develop. So they had to look at themselves, and then they had to look at all of the other members of the team. So everyone was actually evaluating everyone else. This person has all of these, and this person needs to develop all of these. So then I asked them to check the list, their own list and everyone else's list about them. It was very revealing now. Some people, what was on your list and what was on everyone else's list is probably the things that you're pretty open about. But what was on your list and not on anyone else's list were the things that you were hiding or not revealing. And what was on their list and not on your list were the things that you were blind about. That was extremely revealing. People live and work with each other, and they were saying things like, I never imagined that you thought this about me, right? I mean, I've never thought that I was like that. Now you're telling me that I am. So it was like a lot of insights were coming out just because they started to honestly evaluate each other. And this is the problem with ego, that what we think about ourselves and what other people think about us may not be the same thing, right? Either we exaggerate or we sort of play things down. We try to appear in a way that we are not, or we don't appear in the way that we should for any reason. So this whole thing of being able to leave the world which is being formed to us through the ego and really go down to a deeper state. This is a challenge. This is what developing spirituality is all about. I leave my definitions. I leave my, though I need these physical characteristics, I'm not what I've done, and I'm not what I do. I am this spiritual being going through this human existence, and I'm interacting with other spiritual beings who are also. So there are 2 realities. There's the sort of surface reality, and there's this deep one. And going, that's what we do when we meditate. So what do I do when I meditate? We just leave 3 things, basically. Not abandon them, just leave them temporarily. Leave the physical existence and take on board the spiritual one. You know, I have a body. I'm the soul, but I have a body. I'm not the body. Second, through the body, I have many roles, but I'm not any of the roles that I have. I'm the actor playing those roles. And then thirdly, I'm not this all of the things that I've done in this life that I can remember. There's a story, but I'm not the story either. I have a story, I have roles, and I have a body. So then I can start to work on real spiritual characteristics. I'm not saying that it's easy. With everyone that I've ever met probably thinks that they are their body. And this is the challenge. So what I want to conduct a sort of a meditation now instead of talking so much, and we can see what happens. Okay. So again, I want you to sit nicely. And just play around with these ideas a bit. Again, let's become very aware of this moment that's happening, and then become aware of different dimensions. Yeah. I have this physical body. It's a very valuable instrument. I need it. I'm not going to ignore it, but I'm the driver of this car. I'm not the car. Through my physical body, I have different roles. At home and at work, in the street, in the country, I have different roles. And I am the administrator of these roles. I play these roles through the body. So I can step back a little bit. I can watch the play. And through this physical body, I have developed a sort of a history, a story. I can just be detached a little bit from the story and enjoy it. But just feel. Meditation is much more about feeling and thinking. I feel that there is a difference. I am this deep inner being. I'm trying to recover the dignity that I somehow lost. And I can look at the things that I've been doing and the roles that I've been playing in a very special way. My deeper qualities are actually, I'm loving, I'm peaceful, very powerful at this deep level. When I start to limit myself again, I lose access to my deep quality. Somehow I forget. So just keep this feeling in mind. So I start to understand the difference between the roles that I have through the body and my deep identity. I'm the spiritual being. On one side there's the physical world, on the other side there's this inner world of feelings and the real sort of reality in a way. And just for a moment stay in that. These two things are happening at the same time. I'm not running away, I'm just filling myself with understanding so that I can interact with things better. And again, just back to the surroundings, wherever you are. And feel good. Okay. You know, it's a very deep sort of topic. It's very meaningful. We start to have this sense of control. If ego is in control, I'm under control by the ego. But if I control, the thing is that I don't have to bash up the ego, you know. It's not something I have to destroy. I have to become friendly. Of course, I can't just ignore the things that I can't ignore my physical identity. I can't ignore the things that I've studied and done and built up over my life. I can't ignore that. I can't ignore the roles that I've done. So I have to, instead of, it's the wrong thing to think that I have to destroy the ego. No, I have to make sure that it represents me a little bit better than it does. Be friendly. No. Pardon?
It is very difficult in New York.
Why?
Because too friendly, too smiling. So many people bother me, they misunderstand. Because New Yorkers, they don't smile each other. When you smile,
They don't smile.
they don't smile. When I smile, why you smile?
Is it? Is it like that? Well,
Yeah, New York is like that. No? Don't you feel that way? Right?
if someone smiles at you, you think there's something wrong.
Yeah. So that's why first things I teach to my daughter when we get in a subway. Don't look at people, don't smile. Just
No.
focus yourself.
You know, I remember, let me tell you a story. I grew up mainly in Sydney in Australia. Even though I live now in Brazil, I grew up in Sydney. I was born there. And every day I had to go through a park for a time. I had to go through a park because I had to catch a bus on the other side of the park to go to work. I didn't have a car at the time. So a beautiful park. It was quite, I guess, from one side to the other about half a mile. So I had to walk quite a bit. And every day, because I would go to work, every day at the same time, this guy came walking in the other direction. And he's had such a long face. He looked like he'd spent the whole night crying or something, so really down, And I decided, let me do an experiment with this guy. So I started to try to call his attention. He would walk every time, the same time I was going across this way, he was coming back the other way. And so I smiled at him, and he sort of grunted. Right. Next day I smiled, and he grunted again. So I kept it up. Finally, he didn't grunt. He just sort of, he looked at me, and he sort of, there was some gleam in his eye, something like that. So it went on that track for a while, just he was recognizing me, and I was smiling with him going past. And finally, I guess after about 3 weeks, he smiled, And then the next day he asked me, but why are you smiling at me? He stopped. He said, why are you smiling at me? I said, a bit like you, I thought, so if you're going through this beautiful park every day, why wouldn't I be smiling? And so we started to chat about it. Like we stopped and had a bit of a talk. And then the next day, more of a talk, and then more of a talk. And I found out that his wife had just died. So, and he was going through some anguish. And so I thought, yeah, why not? We can help. So often we take on board, one of the things that causes sorrow in us is we tell a story to ourselves that provokes our own sorrow. And then if you really ask someone, do you really want to feel sad? And no one will say yes. Because what we tell ourselves may be not the real deep reality. There may be other factors that we're not aware of. And so it's possible to go beyond any sorrow if I start to tell myself about a situation in a deeper way. I start to tell myself about things and about my life and about the people that are part of my life in such a way that I don't take sorrow. And this is the whole story. When you talk about leaving the ego to going back to inner dignity, that inner dignity is actually dignities related to being having some sort of merit, having some sort of worth. And so self-compassion is sort of indicated. I should start to have more compassion for myself. I should stop beating myself up about situations that I don't fully understand, that I don't really have to really suffer. Of course, I can see things that I have to be considerate, I have to be merciful, I have to be loving, but it doesn't mean that I have to suffer. So these are the sorts of things that I could actually go beyond suffering if I could go beyond my ego. Possible. Because of the ego brings up so many associations which are not completely 100% real. And these are the, maybe related to work, maybe related to relationships, maybe related to other people, maybe it's related to the fact that I'm in another country and I'm not with the place that I grew up anymore. I have to I've got two things I can do. I can accept and understand, and I can control my thinking. And with those two things, I can pretty much start to recover from anything, whatever it is. Not easy, but it's not impossible either. So anyone got anything to ask or to say, to comment? People here are very quiet, I've noticed. Yeah.
You say that our point of reference can inspire our ego, even if we're naturally very happy and optimistic and peaceful, but the people that surround us maybe are the opposite. You think that can be a point of reference that can kind of infiltrate the subconscious.
Oh, definitely. We are highly influent, how do you say? We are influenceable. I don't know if that word exists. We are volatile in a way. Where the ego is very volatile, so therefore it's very easily influenced by things around. So if I've got a great opinion of myself and someone said something different, you know, what is it the reaction? What takes offense is the ego. You know, you have this you sort of set something up, but it's so vulnerable and so delicate that someone comes along just with one word can shatter it completely. So that means it wasn't real in the first place. Real things stay standing. Unreal things don't stay standing. So it's true. The point of reference is also changing all this. If I rely on my ego to tell me how things are around me, the points of reference are changing all the time. So I'll never have a sense of stability if that's how it is. There are, let's say, on a surface level, there's a lot of stuff happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I live on the surface. I also go up and down very easily. If I go a little bit deeper, then I notice those things and I'm less affected, but I'm still affected. If I go really deep, at that deep level, things are pretty constant. So all of this change. I remember in that time with the tsunami, a friend of mine, that tsunami that happened in Asia in 2004 was. So I was there at the time. And a friend of mine had recommended 3 of his friends to go on a skin diving tour of Thailand. And they told the story that later on, that they were skin diving at the time that the big wave came over. And they were under the water, right? So the biggest wave in history went over their heads and they didn't feel anything. So when they come up to the surface, they looked around, they couldn't find their boat. You know? And then they swim back to the shore and they couldn't find the town either. So the biggest wave in history passed over their heads. So it means basically, if you're on the surface, the waves are there, right? All sorts of waves, all sorts of turbulence. But if you're a little bit going deeper, you will not be so disturbed. So there are true things in us that don't change. For example, I'm a spiritual being. That no matter if I forget it, if I don't understand it, I don't accept it, it doesn't change the fact that I am. At a deeper level, you can say it's connected up with other things in that same dimension. For example, people say that we're all children of God. So there is that reality, a sense of reality of the connection with the source, the connection with the creator. That doesn't change. Even though at a surface level, we may go into all sorts of ups and downs. If I want to become stable again, I have to grab onto those unchanging realities. And that's where our inner dignity lies. That I can hold on to. Everything is shaking and I'm holding on to what is true. So reference points, if they are superficial, I'll be tossed all over the place. But if they are deeper and truer, I won't. Yeah.
So, I'm understanding correctly, like use yourself as a point of reference instead of.
Use your deep self as a
Yeah.
point of reference, because it's really closer to what you really are. You know, the first verb is to be. The second verb is to do, maybe. But people put the do verb first and they forget the be verb. The third verb is have. Some people put have first. They are not human beings, they are human happiness. Right? They're not human beings, they're human doings. If I start at the start, I can keep myself more stable. If I try to do something later on, I'm already away from that. So what meditation is to remember who I am, basically. Who I really am, that's what meditation helps me. Yeah, so when you say who I am, people could point to their chest, but it's not.
No,
It's not the chest, right?
it's examining. Because most of the people, they're thinking that body is the reality, is the life. But if we're thinking all human beings, we are connecting, and if I smile, that makes me.
Where does the smile come from?
Huh?
The smile comes from deep. If it's a real smile, it comes from deep down, doesn't it?
Because like I'm from Japan, I always smile. I have no problem in my life. But since I came to New York, when I smile, I'm causing a lot of trouble. Yeah, now I'm getting less because I'm getting old. But when
Who's getting old?
my
The body is getting old.
That's interesting.
But in New York, if you go to the city or workplace, it's okay. But when you go to other, different, how to call.
What's the expression of people when they're going on the subway?
For example, I smiling like a super janitor, everybody, I smiling, hi, good morning, good morning. And then they started to like me, very friendly. And then one day say, oh, we got a beer, we can go to this, we can drink about it. No.
Not that sort of smile.
Those kind of, they're maybe when young.
In New York, we have every single culture, so everyone has their own experience with how they react.
So that's the reason why I stopped smiling. I smile.
Yeah, you should.
People I
But
know.
you can smile to us.
Yeah, only people I know.
You can smile to us, and we all love it. Yeah. But the thing is that there is a deeper reality. That's the whole essence of what we're saying here. There's a deeper reality that we need to know more about. And I as a spiritual being, I exist before this body. I give life to it. There are 40, 50, 60 trillion cells in a human body. And I give my presence in the body as a spiritual being gives life to every single cell, life force. When I leave it, all of those cells sort of switch off. And the body's called dead. But I'm not dead, I continue. So I have to start to understand that reality while living with this other one, and with living with New York around me right now, with all of this melting pot of different cultures and all of the possibilities. And look at the people at the place you work, how different they are, at the surface level. But if you go down deeper, they're pretty similar to you, even if they're a different culture. I've traveled the world so much, I've seen so many different cultures. I've been to at least 80 countries in this life. And you know, the differences are pretty superficial. You get a taxi driver in Tokyo who's upset with the other drivers, and a taxi driver in Buenos Aires, and you translate what they say, probably saying the same thing.
I have a question, brother.
Yeah, you've got a question.
Yeah, you said we have to go deeper down the ocean, to stay stable. And remember, two things is one is I am soul and I am connected with the source, right? So, but the thing is that we all day we take all the actions, and actions are like moving one to other. So how do we adopt this? Like, before we take the action, every time we take action, we pause and remind ourselves that I am soul and connected with the source. So that way we don't have ego.
That's right. I mean, it's very easy to get caught up in everything throughout the day. That's why in the beginning of the day, you have to sort of, before you get involved in activities, you sort of reaffirm these things to yourself. And during the day, stop from time to time just to check for a minute or so where you're at. Otherwise, you just get absorbed by everything that's going on. One thing leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other, and you get exhausted. So start the day well, start the day with a good foundation of thoughts related to what was said, and you'll have a better day. Definitely. Otherwise, just get caught up in everything. It's so easy. Because that's what we're used to. We get chronically sort of caught up in whatever we do. Whereas there are different ways of living the same life with the same people, in the same situation, can start to interact differently. But it does take a lot of, not like going to Auntie's house. It's not so easy. But you can, with the same people around you, the same situation, you can have a different experience. And a more elevated experience. That is possible. But requires effort. Okay?
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Different topic
Different topic.
for the, I struggle to forgive. I have a bad memory. But memory, now I started to, when I meditated, I asked, I don't know, I could communicate or not, but I tried to please bring my that memory. But how I can do this?
You have to, that's a whole topic in itself. But the thing is that the analogy of the lack of forgiveness, like the metaphor is a fish hook. No, a fish hook. But the first fish on, the hook has a barb on it, right? Poor little fish, the mouth gets caught on the barb and it can't get off again, right? So the first fish on this hook of lack of forgiveness is you. And the second hook is the other person that you can't forgive, or the situation you can't forgive. And so both of you are hooked. And you have to somehow take the other person off the hook, and then you have to take yourself off it. So but the thing is, the lack of forgiveness starts with yourself. Right? You are the first one on and the last one off. So not easy, again, not easy, but if you look at it, why did you feel that something bad happened? What convinced you that it was so bad? Why did you take so much suffering from that? Who told you to suffer? You convince yourself of the suffering.
For me, I have a no. When I was a kid, like 7, 8 years old, I had a precedence on my parents. I have no way to protect it by myself. No reason. I didn't do anything wrong.
So she treated you badly.
Yeah, when she had say high temper.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, that's
So those kind of the things still keep it in my mind, even though he passed away. But that makes me always come out. When I come out, even the meditation.
is it getting better? Is it getting better?
But still, when I watch a movie or when I see something, that will come up right away very fresh.
Okay.
And that makes me fine. Because for that reason why, even though I meditated, I want to go to being my soul, but always when I come out, that for me, so I want to reveal, I want to go to.
So you know what you have to do, right? You have to release, you know, have to learn how to release all of that.
That's why I say,
It's the past. Past is past, right? It's finished. Doesn't exist anymore, even the person not around anymore. So that happened then and now, you know, you have to start to look at things. Try to live more in the, if you don't make a really good use of the present, past comes back, sure. But if you don't, then the past will be there. So make the best use of the present possible. And I mean, we are not here, we are not psychiatrists or psychologists, but maybe you need some help. Okay. If it's some traumatic situation, then maybe you do need some help, but you can also help yourself by not reliving the past. It's not real anymore. It's sort of just a recording in you, like a recording. No, you have to start to you have to go deeper into meditation. You can start to separate yourself away from those things. But and it's not, if it's such a traumatic thing, it may take time. And you may need further help, like I said. But it's possible to I'll give you an example. If you have a wound, right? And the wound isn't completely healed, and somebody throws salt on the wound, what do you feel? It stings, right? But if the wound is already healed and somebody throws salt there, you don't feel anything. So it means that whatever happened to you is still not completely healed, and you can use the present to heal the past. You can. Directly or with help from some side, you can do that. So just feel, this is the whole thing about self-dignity. I am the spiritual being, I'm the soul, I'm God's lovely child, whatever. And this is what I really am. And then those things happened when I didn't even know about this stuff. So naturally it impacted me more. Past is past. I mean, it's a process, but you can sort it out, yes. But not in maybe in 5 minutes of talking about it here. Okay. So let's finish off. 7:40. Yeah. Let's get out. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Om Shanti, Om Shanti.
So anything?
Will we be able to find the replay for this?
Replay.
Yeah, because it got cut out. I didn't hear the rest of the story. I wanted to hear. We got interrupted in your story.